Right now, stakeholders have raised concerns over the insecurity and the sit-at-home policy in the eastern part of the nation. The policy, which was aimed at protesting the rearrest of the IPOB leader and meant to be non-violent, now appears to have worsened the plight of the Southeasterners by heightening the state of insecurity in the region. Analysts say the sit-at-home order has increased insecurity in the southeast and has made commercial and social activities unsafe and unconducive in the zone. We're now joined by APGA Chairman Sly Ezeokenwa to discuss insecurity in southeast, effect of sit-at-home on its economy and how to end this problem. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
All right, let's get straight into it. We're 3 years into sit-at-home orders now. What is really the challenge in putting a stop to this? Because it seems quite straightforward. It's illegal, so why don't the police just stop it?
Well, you see, the challenge of the sit-at-home in the south is like I listened to you went memory lane in trying to, discuss one or two issues that led to it. You mentioned the continued incarceration of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, and the circumstances surrounding both the way and manner security officials of the federal government invaded his home in Abia State, and that led to his disappearance and then subsequently his rearrest outside the shores of the country and his continued incarceration. And now, like you said, the IPOB has come out to declare sit-at-home initially, while trying as much as possible to reiterate the call for the release of its leaders. And this, like you said, has heightened the state of insecurity in the southeast, and with the attendant and resultant both political, socio-economic losses to the southeast. As at last year, I recall, before I wrote a letter, an open letter to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, upon assuming office as the national chairman of APGA, there was a report then by, I think it was the International Center for Investigative Reporting, that put the losses, the economic losses to the entire southeast as at July last year. We're not even talking that we are now in October 2024. As of July last year, it was put at about 5-point-something trillion naira, So you can imagine the humongous loss that has been occasioned, not to talk about the wanton destruction of lives and property. Another report put it that thousands of both military, police, and civilians have been killed in the southeast. And all the issues, the myriads of issues surrounding the declaration of sit-at-home in the southeast and the heightened insecurity has led to various calls by various stakeholders at various times to seek for solution. Because for me, this is not the time to begin to apportion blames. It's very, very important, and I am here and I state it unequivocally. This is not the time to begin to apportion blame. Some people have said, oh, why are you calling for the release of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu? If certain persons have engaged in certain criminal activities as a result of his continued detention by the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, then it is justified. That is their contention. But as far as we are concerned, we are looking at the southeast as a region. We are looking at the potentials of this region. Mind you, Onitsha, which happens to be in the southeast Nigeria in Anambra State, is the economic nerve center of not just Nigeria, but the entire West Africa. Because the largest market in the entire West Africa is in Onitsha main market. And people from all walks of life, people from all parts of the country visit Onitsha on a daily basis. Not to talk of people from other neighboring countries in the West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. And now you imagine the resultant loss to the businesses, resultant loss to investment, resultant loss to the economy, resultant down even to government revenue in providing certain essential services to its people. So when you look at all these issues, you now understand why stakeholders like us came out and said, look, Mr. President, if we can find a political solution to this problem, irrespective of who is to blame or who is not to blame, because certain persons have said that a particular individual, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a major stakeholder in the security of the socio-economic of activities of the Southeast, a pivotal person, because he commands respect, whether you like it or not. He has followers. So we said, if we can get this man, even the governor of Anambra State, who incidentally is the national leader of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, had volunteered to be a shorty, that if it is possible, that the government can even release him to him, so that all the stakeholders, including members of the IPOB, we sit down at the round table with other stakeholders and other chieftains of the region, and we discuss these issues. And when we discuss these issues, we now try as much as possible to separate the wheat from the chaff. Because if certain persons are in various bushes in the Southeast claiming to be fighting for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and then you release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and those people now continue to remain in the bush, then a clear demarcation must have been made between genuine agitators and people who are now engaging in criminality. Because the major problem we have in the Southeast is that many people are now hiding under the guise of the continuous demand for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to engage in all manner of criminality. Incidentally, the indigenous people of Biafra has even come out recently to denounce the continued order of sit at home in the Southeast. So the question is, who is declaring who, or who is declaring what? So these are the issues that surround the insecurity in the Southeast region. And we continue to make that call for whatever it is worth, for us to have a seeming solution to this problem, for us to have a lasting solution, for us to have a way to quell this insecurity in the Southeast, that we still continue to call on Mr. President to intervene and heed to the call by stakeholders in the Southeast region for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, so that we can have a political solution. And then the second and the corollary to these issues is the need for the federal government as much as possible to empower the security agencies. I can bet you, the people are tired of sitting at home. There's nobody you can tell me that prefers to go and sit at home. Why? He has businesses to run.
Of course.
There are people whose nature of business are such that...
Thank you so much for elaborating, giving us a real insight on the cost, what has come as a cost regarding sit-at-home, whether it be the economic cost of lives, and whatnot in terms of businesses. But I'd like to know how you respond to criticisms that Southeast politicians seem to have prioritized personal political interests over finding a lasting solution to the security situation.
Well, people can make all manner of permutations. People can make all manner of insinuations. As far as I'm concerned, the security situation in the Southeast is not something that should be politicized. And I say that sincerely as a concerned stakeholder. Because what we have witnessed in the past 3 years is monumental and wanton loss of lives and property. And so you don't know who it's going to bet at his home tomorrow. So it's not something that you play unnecessary politics with. And as far as I'm concerned, and as far as our party, the All Progressive Grand Alliance, is concerned, that's why we continue to make this call. We continue to intervene and plead with Mr. President to see what he can do. Because if you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you see that apparently the entire security architecture in the country revolves around the president and his ministers. If you look at section 214 and 215 of the Constitution, you see where the police is. And then it equally heightens the call, because as a political party, we are interested in entrenching true federalism in Nigeria. Just recently, you know, the Supreme Court delivered judgment, a landmark judgment on local government autonomy. And we want the federal government because apparently this case that led to the local government autonomy was initiated by the federal government through the Attorney General. So the second arm of it is the call for the decentralization of the security architecture. Because it is very, very clear. Apparently, Nigeria is the only country, maybe in the world, I don't know if any other, that appears or purports to run a federal structure where you have every security apparatus, every security architecture domiciled with the president. That is an aberration. As far as we are concerned, there is no way you can expect a governor. You call a governor the chief security officer of a state. Yet, the Constitution requires the commissioner of police in his state, even if he gives him lawful directive, to probably consult either with the Inspector General of Police or with the President or any other person designated by him before they take certain action. For me, that should not be. We shouldn't be having such a thing in the 21st century in the world. So these are many more issues, and that's why I say it's not something that we should politicize, because it has touched everywhere. It has touched every fabric of the society. It has touched every fabric of livelihood around the Southeast. So when you begin to see politicians begin to say, oh, if I do this or if I don't do that, or this led to this or this led to that, we have crossed that stage. There was a time probably when this whole issue started. People tried as much as possible to play politics. If you look around the Northeast and the Northwest region, we saw when the Boko Haram issue started, how people politicize it. Today, most people can't even travel to any part, those parts of the country. And similar thing is about to happen in the Southeast, except the stakeholders in the region rally around together. The other time, I remember the chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum, the governor of Imo State, had a meeting. And with that, there were so many stakeholders, because it was a summit on the security around the Southeast. And a number of issues were discussed, and a number of resolutions were reached. Part of the resolution, incidentally, because everybody keep making this call for the president to intervene and look at how we can have a political solution. Because it is not always, if we say, okay, let us wait for the courts to finish with the trial of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, then we can see us waiting for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Nobody knows when it will end. Because we see these bickerings here and there about recusal of judges and non-recusal of judges. These, and why we do all these things, why we continue to prevaricate, the loss of lives and the wanton destruction of property continues to be perpetuated around the Southeast region. And that's why I always join my call and join other well-meaning citizens and indigents of the Southeast to intervene and plead with Mr. President to see how we can have a political solution to the incessant insecurity in the Southeast. It has gone beyond what people can talk about politics and all whatnot. This is no longer a case of you belong to this political party or you don't belong to this political party. Because if you say you are vying for the office of the governor or maybe House of Reps or Senate, you must vie for those offices because you are supposed to superintend over the activities of individuals, citizens of those places. And so when you don't have people, when people are killed on a daily basis, who are you going to oversee? Who are you going to superintend over? Okay. So these issues are not something we should politicize. Right. And I call on every well-meaning individual or citizen of the Southeast region to rally around the governors of this forum, including the members of the House of Reps and the senators and legislators of this area, to find a solution to this issue.
Sure. Let me interject at this moment, because you've said something quite interesting to me, which is that you would like the president to prefer a political solution. Now, when we look at other places in the country where there may be challenges happening, you know, Rivers State is currently the biggest example of, a state that has 1 or 2 challenges. Yes. And the president did step in and offered a political solution, but politicians in their nature will always do what is in their best interest. Now, are you sure that the president offering a political solution is really the answer? And what does that political solution look like in your books?
I can tell you, the situation in Rivers is entirely different from the situation in the Southeast region. What is happening in Rivers State is purely politics. I don't want to take sides. You understand? So, and the only advice I can give to the active actors in the Rivers State is that as much as possible, people should abide by the provisions of law. There are provisions of various sections of various law that mandate people to operate their activities within the ambit of the law. And that is the only issue. But in the Southeast issue, it's beyond politics. It's beyond politics. Now, some persons who felt, because you must understand the genesis of this whole issue. Before IPOB came out, you remember we had MASOB. And for one reason or the other, following the Civil War, because if you trace back the issue of Biafra, you go back to the Civil War. And then the promises after the war on the 3 hour by the then head of state, Gowon, about implementing the 3 hour of reconciliation, reconstruction, and reconstitution. Now, that is different. And after that, some persons felt that in spite of the war, and in spite of how the war ended, and the victims of those war, the millions of people that were killed in those war, that it appears, that is the argument, and that is their contention, and I will say justified, that there appears to have been incessant and persistent marginalization of the Southeast region. And therefore, that has led to various calls and various agitations in the past. And like I mentioned, there was the movement for the accreditation of sovereign state of Biafra, led by Mazi Rafo Wazirike. And then recently, the indigenous people of Biafra, led by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, before his incarceration. And again, you equally look at some persons who are equally outside the shores of this country, who appear to equally have some economic benefit to even get from all these issues. You see the case of Simon Ekpa, why the, what is it called, the public secretary of IPOB, as we know, one Emma Powerful, is here issuing statement. Some other person is outside the shores of the country issuing another statement. So the situation in the Southeast precedes ordinary politics, just like River State. If at all there was a case that I can use as a clear example, you recall when President Yar'Adua, late President Yar'Adua, was the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there were issues by then Niger Delta militants about how the resources, that God gave them, their naturally endowed resources, has been plundered by the federal government without any resultant improvement or infrastructural development or investment around the Niger Delta region. And that led for a quest and agitation. And they were bombing and actually trying to destroy certain installations or oil facilities around that region. And why these issues were first, of course, some people will argue, yes, they're engaging in criminality, as we have it. But the fact remains that genuinely or not, these people have certain decisions or certain reasons backing whatever decisions they have taken. And that is why the then president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria stepped in and provided what we call a political solution to that issue. That led to even the 15% derivative and other issues, including granting amnesty to these people. And this is what I intend, or I call on the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because apart from this issue, there are people who are inside various bushes in the Southeast,
of course,
claiming to be agitating for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu.
Mr.
So if we have so-and-so person released, and
Mr. Sly Ezeokenwa, you've spoken.
I can hear you, Cynthia.
You've spoken very well. We appreciate the depth of your analysis, and we do hope that your calls are adhered to. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. But we'd like to thank you for joining us here on Newsday.